He had 250 women before me and promised that he would stop with it when we got married. I knew about his past, hell, everyone in our town did. Never return home without warning. Just take my word for it. This could hurt you for the rest of your life. I came home from a business trip a few hours early because I wanted to surprise him. I bought some fancy lingerie and picked up dinner for two from our favorite restaurant. He was so cocky that he brought another woman home without even closing the door. I caught them both naked in my silk sheets. Subscribe to this channel to hear even more exciting stories. Write in the comments from which state you are watching us. Mark was that guy, charming, magnetic, the kind of man who could make you feel like the only woman in the world, until he moved on to the next one. But he swore things would be different with me. And like a fool, I believed him. I gave him everything, my trust, my love, and, eventually, even a part of myself I could never get back. Last year, Mark's kidneys failed. The doctors told us he'd need a transplant or he'd die waiting. Without hesitation, I got tested. I was a match. I remember sitting in that cold hospital bed, pale and terrified, and looking at him smiling at me, whispering, "I'll never forget this, Lucy. You've saved my life. It's you and me forever now." Forever, huh? 3 months later, I found out he was cheating on me. Never, ever return home without warning. Just take my word for it. This could scar you for life. I came home from a business trip a few hours early because I wanted to surprise him. I had everything planned, stopped by our favorite restaurant to pick up his favorite steak and mashed potatoes, grabbed a bottle of that ridiculously overpriced wine he loved, and even bought new lingerie. It was supposed to be a romantic night, the kind where you remind each other why you chose each other in the first place. But the joke was on me. His car was in the driveway when I pulled up. My heart actually skipped a beat, thinking about how surprised he'd be. But when I walked in, something felt off. The house was quiet, but not that quiet. There was music faintly playing upstairs. And then I heard it, muffled laughter, low whispers, the unmistakable creak of our bed. I climbed the stairs slowly, my legs shaking, dinner bag in one hand, wine bottle in the other. And then I saw it. He was so arrogant, so sure of himself, that he hadn't even bothered closing the door. There he was, lying on our silk sheets, my silk sheets, with some half-naked woman straddling him. Both of them froze when they saw me. Her eyes went wide, and she scrambled to grab her clothes. He didn't even flinch. "Lucy," he said, like I was the one interrupting him. "What are you doing home?" I just stood there, numb, the wine bottle slipping from my fingers and shattering against the hardwood floor. "My name is Lucy, and I'm 59 years old." I never thought I'd be telling this story, but here I am. After my divorce, I had to rebuild everything, not just my life, but myself. I changed careers. I'd been an accountant for almost 3 decades, but I couldn't stand the thought of going back to the same old routine, seeing the same faces that knew his side of the story but never cared about mine. So I trained as a psychologist. It wasn't easy starting over at my age, but I did it because I needed to understand, not just him, but me. Why had I stayed so long with a man I knew deep down would hurt me? Why had I given him my kidney, my body, my heart, when he never truly deserved any of it? The funny thing is, my pain became my purpose. I started a small charity for women who had been cheated on, women like me who had to claw their way out of betrayal and rebuild their self-worth from the ground up. It started with support groups in my living room and grew into something much bigger than I ever imagined. But no matter how much I helped others, the memories still haunt me. Every time I hear a cork pop or smell steak on the grill, I'm back in that moment, standing frozen in the doorway, my whole life crumbling around me. And that was only the beginning. Because as much as I thought I knew about betrayal, I had no idea just how deep Mark's lies really went. The thing I regret most in my life is that one September morning, on my way to work, I met him. If I could erase a single moment, it wouldn't be the day I caught Mark cheating, or the night I signed the divorce papers. No. It would be the morning when fate, or maybe just bad timing, decided to put Matt in my path. It happened so fast. I was crossing 8th Avenue, late for a meeting, sipping my lukewarm latte, when a yellow cab came flying around the corner like a bat out of hell. I swear I felt the whoosh of air against my legs before a strong arm yanked me backward. My heel broke clean off as I stumbled into him, my heart pounding like a war drum. "You okay?" he asked, his voice deep and calm, like he'd just saved women from death by taxi on a regular Tuesday morning. I was too stunned to answer. I just stared at him. Hazel eyes, a dimple that made his smile unfairly beautiful, and hands so warm it was like holding on to safety itself. "I want to save you for the rest of my life," Matt said, grinning. "How about coffee instead of dying today?" And like an idiot, I laughed. I said yes. The problem was, I was already in a relationship. Sebastian, my safe, predictable, slightly boring boyfriend of 3 years. He was sweet, kind, dependable. He also still lived with his parents at 29, kept his high school baseball trophies on his dresser, and called his mom whenever he couldn't find clean socks. He'd just asked me to marry him. But when I pictured my future with Sebastian, all I saw was Sunday dinners with his mother critiquing my cooking, the same suburban house he grew up in, and a man who still needed permission to breathe. I wanted more. I wanted passion, adventure, danger. And Matt. Matt was a walking, talking what if. So I went on that coffee date. And another. And another. The first 3 dates, Matt never even tried to touch me. Well, not like that. We'd sit on the grass in Central Park, talking for hours, and sometimes he'd take my hand, but it wasn't about rushing me. It wasn't about getting anything. He made me feel seen. Desired, but not objectified. By the 3rd date, I remember thinking, wow. He's different. He's not like everyone else. Other guys just want sex. This guy sees me as a woman, not a conquest. I told myself I was just making a friend. That nothing serious would happen. That I wasn't cheating because we hadn't even kissed. But deep down, I already knew. I was falling, and I wasn't going to stop. 2 months in, he gave me the key to his apartment. I still remember how he handed it to me, casually, like it was no big deal, but his eyes lingered on mine a little too long. "I want you to feel like this is your place too," he said. I drove home that night clutching that key in my hand like it was a promise. And that's when I decided it was time to play some adult games. I bought a little black dress, the kind you wear when you want to be unforgettable. I wore perfume behind my ears and on my wrists, the way my grandmother used to say would make a man follow you home. I even bought the kind of lingerie I swore I'd never spend that much money on. I wasn't nervous. I was electric. That night, when I walked into Matt's apartment, he was cooking dinner. Actual, homemade dinner, steak sizzling in a cast-iron pan, 2 glasses of red wine already poured. Frank Sinatra was playing softly in the background. "You're overdressed for spaghetti," he teased, his eyes trailing over me. "Maybe I came for dessert," I shot back. We didn't even make it to the table. Looking back now, I wish I'd run the other way that September morning. Because Matt wasn't the man I thought he was. And that night, under the warm lights of his apartment, I stepped into something I didn't fully understand, a love that would consume me, destroy me, and leave me with scars I still carry today. But at the time, I thought I'd won the lottery. I thought I'd found my forever. I had no idea that Matt's version of forever came with secrets so dark, they would shatter me. Love makes you do stupid things. The kind of stupid where you start thinking, this one's different. He's not like the others. He loves me. You tell yourself it's fate, that the universe finally gave you a break. And for a while, I believed it. I still remember one evening as if it happened yesterday. It was late September, the first real chill of autumn in the air. Matt had called me in the afternoon and said, almost casually, "Don't make any plans tonight. Wear something warm but beautiful." His voice always carried that soft, confident tone that made you want to obey without thinking twice. I laughed, teased him for being mysterious, but secretly, my heart had been racing ever since I hung up. When he picked me up, he didn't tell me where we were going. He just opened the car door for me like an old-fashioned gentleman and said, "Trust me." And for some reason, I did. I always did. We drove for over an hour, far outside the city, until the traffic lights disappeared and the sky opened wide and full of stars. Finally, he parked near a small hill overlooking a hidden lake. The world was silent, except for the faint ripple of water and the soft rustle of wine through the pines. There was a plaid blanket in the trunk, a bottle of red wine, and 2 crystal glasses wrapped in a scarf. He had planned all of this. "I thought we should get away from everything," he said, spreading the blanket and motioning for me to sit. "I want you to see how quiet the world can be when it's just the two of us." We sat there, drinking wine under the stars, and Matt talked like no man had ever talked to me before. Not about sports. Not about work. But about dreams. About what scared him. About how he thought happiness was fragile and fleeting, and how maybe that's why he chased it so desperately. I listened to him, captivated, as if every word he said unlocked some hidden part of his soul he showed no one else. At one point, I told him how I'd always wanted to see the northern lights someday. He reached over, brushed a strand of hair behind my ear, and whispered, "Then I'll take you there. I'll take you anywhere." His hand lingered on my cheek, warm and steady, and when he kissed me for the first time, it felt as if the entire universe disappeared and there was only the two of us on that hill. I didn't plan for anything else to happen that night, but somehow it felt inevitable. There was no awkwardness, no hesitation, just this overwhelming pull toward him. Every move he made was slow, deliberate, reverent, like he wanted to memorize me. The plaid blanket became our sanctuary, the wine our accomplice, and the stars our silent witnesses. I remember the way he looked at me afterward, holding my hand against his chest as if afraid I'd vanish. "You're going to ruin me, Lucy," he whispered, and it made me smile because, at that moment, I thought I had ruined him in the best way possible. I thought I was special. I thought I was the only one. That night, driving home with the windows down and my head resting on his shoulder, I realized I was falling in love with him. Not the playful, fleeting kind of love I'd known before. This was deeper, heavier, the kind of love that rewrites your entire life and convinces you to trust someone with everything. I didn't know, of course, that he was already keeping that damn diary. That maybe I was just another chapter, another numbered name. But back then, under those stars, I believed in us. And that's why it hurt so much later. That's why I forgave him so many times. That's why I gave him my kidney without hesitation, because on that hill, on that night, I thought I had found my forever. Matt made me feel like I was the center of his world. He'd send me good morning texts before I even opened my eyes, leave sticky notes on my car window saying things like, "Can't wait to see you tonight, beautiful," and make me playlists of songs that sound like us. He didn't just date me. He studied me. My favorite wine, the way I took my coffee, the exact shade of lipstick I wore on our second date. He made me believe I was unforgettable. So, when I ordered a little surprise from a sex shop, it wasn't out of insecurity or jealousy. It was love. I wanted to make our 3rd-month anniversary special. I bought candles, satin handcuffs, and a bottle of champagne. The plan was simple: I'd get to his apartment an hour before our date, set up a romantic atmosphere, and surprise him when he came home from work. Matt was still at the office. I had a key. Nothing about this felt wrong. I didn't snoop. I swear I didn't. I wasn't one of those women who rifled through drawers or read texts on someone else's phone. I trusted him. But when I walked into his apartment, there it was, a black leather notebook sitting on the edge of the coffee table, its cover slightly cracked open like it was inviting me in. I hesitated, standing there with the shopping bag in one hand, candles under my arm. I told myself not to. I told myself it was private. But a tiny voice whispered, "Maybe it's about you. Maybe he writes about how much he loves you." So, I sat down. I opened it. And my world split in half. It wasn't a journal. It was a catalog. Each page was meticulously numbered. At the very top of every entry was a name, followed by an age, followed by vivid, graphic details. Amanda, 24, loves it when I take her from behind. Tina, 39, has big breasts. I love when she gets cruel with me. That's when she really opens up. Lauren, 32, obsessed with roleplay, especially the innocent act ones. I froze. My mouth went dry. My hands trembled as I flipped page after page, my heart pounding louder with every word. Names. Ages. Descriptions. Dates. There were hundreds. And then I found me. Lucy, 29. I was number 251. I stared at the number like it was carved into my skin. 251. Out of how many? For a moment, I thought maybe that was the end. Maybe I was the one who made him stop counting. Maybe I was special enough to be his last. But then I turned the page. And there they were. 2 more names after mine. 2 more women. 2 more vivid descriptions of things he'd never even suggested to me. My breath came out in ragged gasps. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in around me. I slammed the notebook shut and sat there, gripping it like it might explain itself if I held on long enough. This wasn't just cheating. This wasn't even infidelity in the ordinary sense. This was a pattern. A compulsion. An obsession. And all this time, he'd looked me in the eyes and told me he loved me. I don't know how long I sat there before I started crying. When Matt finally came home, I had blown out the candles. I'd packed up the champagne and stuffed the lingerie back into the shopping bag. "Hey, baby," he said, smiling like nothing was wrong, loosening his tie. "You're early." I didn't answer. I just stared at him, holding the black notebook in my lap like a loaded gun. His smile faltered. "Lucy, what's that?" I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. No words. No screams. Just silence. And in that silence, I saw it, the flicker of panic in his eyes. Because he knew exactly what I'd found. That night changed everything. It was the first time I realized I wasn't in love with Matt. I was in love with the version of him he wanted me to see. And I didn't know it yet, but walking away wouldn't be that simple. Because Matt didn't like being left. And he wasn't about to let me go. When Matt came home that night, I was sitting on the floor in the middle of his apartment, surrounded by rose petals and candles arranged in the shape of a heart. It was supposed to be our night. I'd planned everything, champagne chilling, lingerie waiting, my heart beating so fast I thought it might burst. But instead of the smile I imagined, there I was, sitting cross-legged on the hardwood, mascara smeared down my cheeks, clutching his black notebook like it was evidence in a murder trial. He stopped in the doorway, frozen, his eyes darting from the petals to the candles to my tear-streaked face. And then, to the notebook. He understood everything in a split second. "Why the hell are you reading that?" he exploded, slamming the door behind him. "That's private, Lucy. You had no right." I laughed. It was ugly, hollow, bitter. "Oh, I'm sorry. Should I have asked for permission to read about the other 250 women you've been with? Should I have waited until you felt like sharing your statistics? Damn it, Lucy, that's not fair." He ran a hand through his hair, pacing like a caged animal. "That was before you. All of it. Before us. Before us." God, how many times did I hear those words? How many times did I let them soothe me like a lullaby? I should have run. I should have walked out that very moment, candles burning, petals crushed beneath my heels. But I didn't. Because I loved him. And why am I even lying to myself? This wasn't just love. It was obsession. For the first time in my life, I'd fallen so deeply, so recklessly, I didn't care that I was drowning. He had 250 women before me. I knew that. Everyone did. but he'd promised me it was all in the past. "I'm done, Lucy," he'd said once, his fingers brushing my cheek. "You're different. You're the only one I've ever wanted a future with." And I believed him. For 4 years, I believed him. And God help me, those were the happiest years of my life. We traveled, laughed, made love until sunrise. We had stupid little traditions, movie marathons on rainy Sundays, midnight drives to get milkshakes, dancing barefoot in the kitchen to songs only we liked. I even stopped being jealous. Stopped caring about the waitresses who slipped him napkins with lipstick-stained phone numbers right in front of me. Stopped getting angry about the female colleagues who accidentally sent him topless selfies at 2 a.m. He was beautiful. Charismatic. Magnetic. Women wanted him, I accepted that. And he always came back to me. So, I relaxed. And that's when it happened. I missed the moment he started sleeping with other women again. One afternoon, I came home early, unannounced. I walked into our bedroom, expecting to find him napping, or scrolling on his phone like usual. Instead, I found him naked in bed with a blonde who couldn't have been older than 22. My world stopped. She screamed when she saw me, grabbing the sheet to cover herself. But what she said next, it burned into my memory like acid. "Oh my God," she gasped, eyes wide. "Why didn't you tell me you live with your mother?" I froze. She thought I was his mother. I stood there, numb, taking in the glossy mess of my life, the sweat on their bodies, the tangled sheets, the lipstick smudges that weren't mine. And for the first time, I wondered if I looked old next to him. Because while I was working 2 jobs to keep us afloat, while I was carrying the weight of our life on my shoulders, he was out there living for his own pleasure, charming women, chasing thrills, pretending responsibility was optional. And I was the fool financing his freedom. I wish I could tell you that I left him that day. That I slammed the door and never looked back. But love makes you do stupid things. Even when the truth slaps you in the face, you find ways to justify it. Ways to forgive. Ways to stay. I told myself it was a mistake. That he was drunk. That she meant nothing. And when he cried and said he loved me, God, I wanted so badly to believe him. So, I stayed. And that was the biggest mistake of my life. Because when a man like Matt knows you'll forgive him, he doesn't change. He just gets better at hiding it. Finally, I understood why I'd believed him for so long. It wasn't because Matt was convincing, though he was. It wasn't even because he said all the right words at the right time. It was because I was in love. And because somewhere deep inside, I couldn't accept that a man could betray me after I gave him my kidney. He needed surgery 2 years into our relationship. His kidneys were failing. We tried every other option, but nothing worked. I got tested, and by some cruel twist of fate, I was a perfect match. I went under the knife for him. I told myself that kind of sacrifice meant something. That it bound us together in a way no diary, no statistics, no old lovers could undo. But I was wrong. After I found the first diary, after the fight, after the blonde, something inside me cracked. I started rummaging through the house when he wasn't around. Not because I wanted to prove anything, I already knew the truth, but because I needed to see how deep the rabbit hole went. And oh God, it went so much deeper than I imagined. You know how some people can't quit smoking? Or drinking? How some lose themselves at slot machines, chasing the rush of winning until they destroy their lives. Matt's addiction wasn't cards or alcohol. It was women. I found another notebook, thicker, older, stuffed in the back of his closet under a pile of tax documents. When I opened it, I saw my name on page 251 again. But this time, there were so many more pages after me. 300. 400. By the last entry, the list had 390 names. Some women appeared more than once. He circled some, starred others, left little notes like he was building a private database. I couldn't read it sober. So I grabbed the diary, a bottle of wine, and checked into a cheap hotel on the edge of town. I locked myself inside and read until the sun went down. I read about August 25th, a date burned into my memory now. Because on August 25th, just a week after our wedding, Matt had cheated for the first time. And then again. And again. Here's just a glimpse of what I saw. Sophie, 27, married, loves hotel rooms, wants to keep it discreet. Hannah, 34, calls me when her husband's away. Perfect curves, obsessed with role play. Rachel, 22, met her at the gym. Fast, wild, unforgettable. Clara, 40, first time was awkward, but she came back begging for more. Vanessa, 31, redhead, incredible in bed, says she wants to leave her boyfriend. I lost count of how many times I stopped to pour another glass of wine, thinking I'd finally reach the end, only to flip another page. Every name was a tiny dagger, every note a twist of the blade. And what destroyed me most wasn't the number. It was the pattern. I realized Matt took breaks every 2 or 3 months. Periods where he seemed sad, withdrawn, like the weight of the world was crushing him. I thought he was depressed. I thought it was my job to help him. We tried antidepressants. We went on expensive vacations. I held him through nights when he couldn't sleep. I didn't know he wasn't depressed. I didn't know he was fighting himself, fighting an addiction he had no intention of conquering. The next morning, I woke up in that hotel room with the diary on my chest and an empty wine bottle on the floor. And I knew what I had to do. I filed for divorce that same day. I made him move out of my house. I cut him off financially, emotionally, completely. For months afterward, I couldn't even look at another man without feeling sick. My trust was shattered, my heart pulverized into dust. I thought I'd spend the rest of my life alone. But then, somehow, Sebastian came back. The same Sebastian I'd left behind years before, sweet, patient, reliable Sebastian. We reconnected over coffee. Talked about everything and nothing. And for the first time in years, I felt safe. A month later, we exchanged wedding rings. And now, 25 years later, we're still together. Happy. Real happy. I survived Matt. But sometimes, when I can't sleep at night, I think about that black leather diary and wonder how many names came after mine. And how many more hearts he shattered along the way. Life has a way of bringing ghosts back when you least expect them. I've been working as a psychologist in one of the largest hospices in America for over a decade now. I help people find peace in their last days, guide families through the unbearable, and try to ease the weight of regrets no one else dares to talk about. I thought I'd seen everything. Until one Tuesday morning, my office door opened, and Matt walked in. For a second, I couldn't breathe. He wasn't old, but his hair was completely gray, his skin pale, almost translucent. His once magnetic smile had dulled into something brittle and tired. I didn't look at his chart. I didn't need to. He told me everything himself. After me, he'd never married. Just lived in civil arrangements with a few women, moving from one relationship to another without ever stopping long enough to call anything love. He never stopped keeping his diary, in fact, he'd published a book based on it. How to Get a Woman into Bed and Disappear in the Morning. It had actually sold. He'd become a minor cult figure in certain circles, men admired him, women hated him, and he thrived on the attention. I stared at him, and I couldn't understand. How had I ever loved this man? How had I married someone so deeply broken? Matt wasn't just unfaithful. He was sick. He collected women the way some people collect stamps, carefully, obsessively, relentlessly. He wrote their names in his diary like trophies, proving something no one had ever asked him to prove. But what was it? What void was he trying to fill? Then I opened his file. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. A few months left. Maybe less. He didn't even recognize me. For years of marriage, hundreds of nights spent together, a shared kidney, and he looked at me like I was a stranger. Had I really changed that much? Or, maybe he just couldn't bear to admit who I was, couldn't face the wreckage he'd left behind. In the weeks that followed, I'd see him around the hospice. He was still Matt, even dying, even frail. He flirted shamelessly with nurses, volunteers, anyone who'd listen. But one day, I saw him sitting in the ward of a young patient. A girl, barely 20, pale and fragile, fighting for her last breaths of life. He was leaning in close, whispering, making her laugh. And my stomach turned. I couldn't let her become another name in his diary. Not here. Not now. Not when she only had weeks left. I persuaded the doctors to transfer him to another floor. I made them promise to keep them apart. When Matt passed away, no one came for him. No family. No friends. No women. I was the first to sneak into his room after they wheeled his body away. There it was, in the top drawer of his nightstand, where others kept their Bibles or favorite books, he kept his diary. A black leather cover, worn soft at the edges, still faintly smelling of his cigarettes. Matt, I thought, you carried my kidney inside you. You lived inside my head for years. And God knows how many women shed their tears over you. He was cremated a week later. Nobody came to claim his ashes. So I did. His favorite place had always been the local beach. He loved the sun, the surf, the thrill of hitting on women in bikinis like some overgrown frat boy who never outgrew himself. That's where I scattered his ashes. The waves carried him away the same way he'd carried pieces of me, little fragments, scattered, dissolving into something bigger than both of us. It took me a month before I dared to open that terrible diary. By then, I thought I was ready. I wasn't. 724 women. 724 names. Each one carefully recorded, ages noted, intimate details described like he was writing a manual on desire. I flipped through page after page, numb, detached, thinking maybe if I didn't feel anything, it would finally set me free. And then I found my name. Lucy. Page 251. It was the only one circled. At the top, written in messy, hurried handwriting, were the words. I love you. Sorry, I couldn't stop. I don't know why, but I cried. Not for him. Not even for us. I cried for the girl I used to be, the one who believed love could save a man who didn't want to be saved. The one who gave away her trust, her body, her kidney, her youth, to a man who could never give her back what she deserved. And then, I closed the diary. For the last time. Now, when I sit across from patients in their final days, I listen to their regrets, their confessions, their apologies. And sometimes, in the quiet between breaths, I think of Matt. He spent his life chasing bodies but never built a soul-deep connection with anyone. And in the end, he died alone. I didn't. I went home that night to Sebastian, to the man who has loved me faithfully for 25 years, and I held him tighter than I had in a long time. Because now, I finally understood. Matt's diary wasn't my story. It was his tragedy. And I survived it. Only once did I return to the diary to read the entry he had made the first time we were together on that lake under the stars. That memory never left my mind. He must have loved me. But his addiction was stronger than him.
Matt's diary, September 28. Lucy. I like the way her name looks on paper. Simple. No sharp edges. Like her smile. Tonight, I took her to that lake I always use when I want a woman to believe she's the only one. The trick isn't the wine or the stars. It's the silence. Silence makes them open up. And Lucy opened up. God, she talks with her whole body, her hands, her eyes, even the pauses between her words. I could see it happening, the exact moment she started to fall for me. It's always the same moment. They lean in without realizing. They want to be closer. She told me about her dream of seeing the northern lights. I told her I'd take her there someday. I won't, of course. I never do. But I like watching the way their faces change when they believe you. That look, that soft, fragile hope, it's addictive. It's like a drug. When I kissed her, she trembled, just a little. Not from fear, but from wanting it so badly. That's when I knew I had her. I can always tell. And later, when we ended up on the blanket, under the stars. Lucy was different. Most women want to impress you, to perform, but she just was. She trusted me completely, from the first touch. No hesitation. No walls. That's rare. It makes everything sharper, deeper, better. She let me see all of her. Afterwards, she curled up against me like she belonged there. She fell asleep for a few minutes, breathing softly, her hair stuck to my shoulder from the lake breeze. She whispered my name once, like a prayer. I didn't sleep. I lay there thinking how perfect she was, and how I'd ruin her eventually. I always do. I wrote her name at the top of the page when I got home. Number 251. I circled it. That's the rule, if she's different, she gets a circle. I think she's going to stay in my head longer than the others. Maybe she already has.